Hello, everyone. I'm VJR Stewart, the founder of the Ways of the Caveman series. And I just want to say thank you if you watched part one of this video, thank you for watching part two. If you haven't watched part one and you're watching this video, please take the time to go back and watch part one of this video series. So we started off talking about purpose, and we concluded where it was sort of talking about the purpose of women. So I'm going to finish that up so I can move on to the purpose of men. And so the purpose of the wife, really, is to help you as a man find your way back to God. I think, in the garden, that God foresaw that this was going to happen. When God realized that this perfect creation, this paradise garden that I've created, this perfect man that I've created, it's not good for him to be by himself. Except Adam didn't understand what loneliness was. God understood what it was. God is omnipotent, knows everything. But Adam was created into a world by himself. He never knew what companionship was, never knew what another person was. He didn't know other people existed. So you can't miss something that you don't have. But God created another entity called a woman, named her Eve. Adam named her Eve. And Adam instantly fell in love with Eve. Eve fell in love with him because they both saw things in each other that they recognized. This is what we call compatibility. And so I pointed out in the first video, part one, is that this is your first clue as to when you're looking for someone to marry, what you should look for. For men, we generally go for the physical. We look for the woman who's the most attractive, and who's attracted to us. And that's fine. I'm not going to preach on any of that. That's how you do your selection. But in that process, you need to make sure that you are compatible with her, that you see some things in yourself in her, and that she sees some things in herself in you. But in addition to that, women also are given the gift to see beyond the physical. And thankfully that they have that gift, because when I look at these studies, what we have years of these dating sites trends to study. And they all come back and say the same thing. It doesn't matter if it's Tinder or, one of these Harmony Love sites. It doesn't matter. They all kind of the data sort of points out that they've been collecting that 85% of women, 85 to 90% of women select the same 10 to 15% of guys. That most of the guys that are listed profiles, they don't like. When they look at them, I don't like him, don't like him, don't like him, like him, don't like him, don't like him, don't like him, like him. And so if women were basing their selection of a husband strictly on looks, only about 10 or 15% of the guys would end up being married. Now, there is a running joke that these 85% of women are dating the same 15% of guys, which is why they all come to the conclusion that men are dogs and men cheat. And there may be some truth to that. Now, I'm not ruling that out. It's just I haven't really done enough study or research to make that conclusion. But we also hear that a lot of men complain that good guys finish last. And really, I want to revise this a little bit. Beta men finish last. Alpha men don't finish last. And I know there are about 6 to 8 personality types that social psychologists point out. Alpha, betas, you have the sigmas, you have gammas, you have a few other types. But for me, I keep things simple because I'm a simple person. To me, there are alpha males, there are beta males, and there are gammas. I know there's the sigmas out there also, but to me, I reserve sigmas for surgeons and serial killers. That's who sigmas generally end up being. Surgeons and serial killers. It takes a special kind of person. And that personality type lends well to both of those professions. But for the betas, they think they're good guys because they don't hit on women. They try to be respectful. They give women whatever they want. So they acquiesce. They give in. They do whatever they can to make women happy. And they just don't have the knowledge of the personality type to give women what they really want, which is to be energized. Gammas, for example, are good at energizing women, but they're not very responsible. They don't pay bills, and they're not good fathers. They're not good husbands. So women, do not marry and have a baby for a guy that's a gamma type. He's good to party with, have fun with. The sex may even be good. I don't know. But I can tell you this, when it comes to responsibility, he's not very good at being responsible. The alpha male is responsible, is a good man, and he knows how to energize women. That's the difference. Alpha males energize, beta males don't. And when given a choice, it's amazing to me that most women, I'm talking a lot. I have yet to see one survey where this number was upwards of 75-80%. Of women, when given a choice between a good guy and a bad guy, will select the bad guy without apology. And it's not like women don't know he's a bad guy, he's a piece of crap. But at least he knows how to energize me to some degree, make me feel good, to the point where I can kind of distract myself and overlook the shortcomings. So let's get back to the purpose of a woman. I'm giving you these stats and these studies, summary of these studies, to point out that the very guys that think they're good, these betas, are not very good men. 65% of women end up divorcing them after college. If they're college educated, they're married to a beta. The other 35% are just stuck with them, unhappy in their marriages. And I left off with, if you fall into one of these categories, you're thinking, contemplating divorcing your husband because he doesn't energize you. Or you're thinking that I'm just going to stick this out because I have no choice. I don't want to break up my family. I'll just put up with it. I'm just going to be unhappy. And somehow you convince yourself that you're being virtuous, that this is a virtue somehow, to sacrifice for your kids and for others. It's not. You're just being a coward. And the brave thing to do is for the two of you to sit down and talk about it. And the solution is to send your husband my way. You can go to my website, thejrstewart.com. If he needs someone to help him, to hold his hand, to help him become a better man, this is it. This mentoring program is the school for the better making of men. This is what we do. This is my purpose. And so I'm going to go back to Adam and Eve. Adam and Eve saw something in each other. It was compatibility. They recognized something in him. But also, God created that duo because God could see that the day is going to come where the two of these are going to have to leave this garden. That I can no longer commune with you on a daily basis. Maybe I have other things to do. The universe is huge. There are the worlds, other people, other things I have to go do. You know, I leave a couple of angels to hang around here to be in charge of things, to lay out for things. But I can't sit here and commune with you on a daily basis anymore. I don't want to just kick you out of the garden. You know, say, hey, you know, pack your stuff and get to stepping. I don't want to do that. That's going to scar you. So I have to start teaching you. There's some things that you have to learn. And so I have this tree here that bears fruit. We don't know what kind of fruit. We'll assume it was an apple, but it doesn't have to be an apple. It could have been a pear or plum. And if you eat of this tree, this is a tree of knowledge, you can eat of anything around here. All this is yours. That one tree there, stay away from. Don't eat of that tree. Because if you eat of that tree, you're gonna die. And of course, we know what happens. The serpent eats it up to Eve, convinces her to eat of the tree. You won't surely die. See, God just don't want you to have the knowledge that God has. That tree of knowledge will give you godly knowledge, things that you don't know now, you will know. If God truly did not want you to eat of the tree, then why put it there? Well, the preachers and the theologians and the bishops and all these folks are going to say, well, God wants you to have choice. What kind of choice do you have when you don't have knowledge to go with it? A choice that you make just based on instincts, at least are built on some empirical knowledge to help you develop the instinct. Adam and Eve had no knowledge of nothing. They didn't know what death was. They didn't know what disease was, or sickness. They didn't know what hunger was. They didn't know what it was like to be without. They had to face the elements, cold, too hot. They didn't know what rocky lands. I mean, none of this. They knew nothing, because they were kind of kept in an innocent, childlike state. How could they? And now you're saying they have some kind of choice when they have no knowledge to go with that? They have no wisdom built up based on knowledge. Nothing. So how can they really make a choice? And so the story about the tree of knowledge, the betrayal, was not about choice. It may be framed that way now. But this was the intended outcome. This is a way that I can teach you one of the most important lessons of life: responsibility of your choice. The choices have a benefit and a consequence. And you have to accept responsibility for your choices. That's what the tree stood for. But in order to get them to make the choice, because they were automatic before, the tree was supposed to have been there. You've been told not to eat from it. Well, nobody was eating from it. Choice, okay, well, that's not working. I need to make a choice. But in order to get them to make the choice, I now have to manifest myself in another form. So I enter the garden as a serpent. You say, well, Gerald, he's saying that God was both God and a serpent? Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. In the physics world, they would call that superposition. If you don't know, look it up. I'll cover it in another video maybe sometime. If I want to. Actually, I did a video on purpose where I'm basically talked about it in terms of science, not kind of biblical reference I'm doing today. I don't know if we're going to publish that video though, because we get into too much of the scientific minutia of things. But superposition is one of those things. If you're not familiar with the term, look it up. So yes, God is both God and the serpent, and manifests himself in multiple ways. Eve's up to Eve. Eve was left out of the conversation between Adam and God. The two of them kind of just went off in commune. She was left alone. So that generates a little bit of envy. God knew this. And that envy, and we're going to get later on when we talk about Corinthians and Ephesians and some of those other books of the Bible. We'll talk about this whole thing about envy. That's why the Bible says that love is not envy. This is why. God knew this. Generate a little bit of envy. I'm left out of the conversation. Adam and God are going off talking. What am I supposed to do? Well, here comes this serpent that tells you, hey, you know what? That tree there, you're not supposed to eat off. You should go take a bite. Well, God says that I'll die if I eat of that tree. No, you won't truly die. You'll gain knowledge that God doesn't want you to have, want to hold you back. See, you'll start knowing some of the things that God knows if you eat of that tree. Now I'll plant this in your head. Now you have a little bit of knowledge. I can eat of this tree, I can gain some knowledge, and I'm not going to die. It contradicts what I was told before. Now I have enough information, some temptation here. I'm motivated by a little bit of envy. Now I'm driven to make a choice. Do I not eat of the tree? Do I gain the benefit of knowledge from eating of the tree? Well, of course, we know the story. She eats of the tree. And when Adam returns from his commune with God, she convinces Adam to eat of the tree. And by doing that, they both came into the consequence of knowledge. They realized that they were naked. They didn't have any clothes on. They didn't know anything about being naked before. Now they realized that clothes bring a certain insulation value, covering. And so now I can say, okay, as your punishment for making that decision, you got to get the hell up out of here. Not only did God kick him out of the garden, but he posted angels at the entrance or the exit of the garden so they couldn't come back. Angels were bad things. We think of them as being, in the light with these wings and super. No, man. Angels were some bad, men. I don't know if they had sexes, but they were bad entities. They could do bad things to you. You didn't want to cross them. And so if God is posting some angels outside the garden to keep you away, then it's best you stay away. And that's what happened. But the lesson there of the garden was that the very first lesson of life is consequence and choices, responsibility. And you have to accept responsibility for your choices. Adam and Eve are not going to be harmed by this decision. They may not like it. Like, God damn, we gotta give up our home. We have to leave. We gotta make a way for ourselves. I gotta go cure this land. I gotta go tame these animals. We gotta raise food or gather food. Oh crap! All that for a little bit of knowledge that we gain? Doesn't seem to be worth it to me. But since I made the decision, I did gain a benefit from it, a little bit of knowledge. I got to suffer through the consequence of it. I got to live with it. I got to accept responsibility for my choice. And by accepting responsibility for your choice, this drives you in life to do what you can to overcome that. Instead of taking this as a negative and being hurt about it, oh my God, God kicked us out of the garden. What are we going to do? How are we going to live? What are we going to eat? No. It was like, okay, we're going to pack up. We're going to move on. We're going to make a way. Accepting of responsibility for your choices. So when the preacher types talk about choices, I don't think they explain it out far enough, put in the proper context of what this is about. So yes, to some degree it is about choice. But really overall it was about getting Adam and Eve up out of the garden, out of paradise, so they can go populate the world. That was always the plan. It was never for them to stay in the garden forever. This is your starting point. But I need to get you out into the world in the right mindset. But also when you get out there and we disconnect, I need to find a way, a pathway for you to come back. That spiritual connection to be reestablished. Not in the same way that it was before, but still a connection nonetheless. And how am I going to do that? Well, that's what the woman came in for. That's always been her purpose, to help you find your way back to God, to walk in the light, in the image of God. Not physical representation. We don't know what God's physical representation is. It's silly. I see pictures, God sitting on a throne, white person, white beard. We don't know what God physically looks like. But the essence of God, we know what that is. Good versus evil, truth, love, lies, deceit. We know the boundaries. We understand at a basic level. And the woman, your wife, part of her job, basic purpose, is to help you find your way back. And so women, if you're married to a man who's lost, send them to my website. Let's start the process of helping them find his way back to God. You may not fully understand it. He may not fully understand it. I can certainly work with him so he will understand it. So he understands what you're doing. That when you fell in love with him, you saw a person in him. You saw things in him. You saw more in him than he saw in himself. And the closer he gets to being that person, the more in love you become. The further away he gets from that person, the less love. Women who say, well, yeah, I looked up one day and I didn't love him anymore. That lets me know that the person that she originally saw in you, you're not that person. You're so far from that person that she doesn't recognize you anymore. That sound familiar? Oh, I don't even know him anymore. That's why. Because you're not that person. You're not the man God that she saw, that she envisioned. When she's nagging you about picking up your clothes, about creating some order around the house, keeping things neat, you think she's just nagging you. What she's really doing is helping you become a better person. When she's been disappointed so many times that she no longer has faith and trust in you, you say you're going to do something, like, yeah, right, I've heard that before. She's basically giving you feedback that you're a dishonest person. You don't think that you're bad. You think you're an okay guy. But when you can't keep your word, so I have a Bible next to me. I'm going to grab it in a minute. If I don't do it in this series, part 3, I'm going to wrap all this up. And we'll get to the Bible. You think that you're a good guy because, I don't hit her. I'm not abusive. I work. I pay bills. She's not energized by me. You can't keep your word. You're constantly promising to do this and do that, and you don't follow through on it. You think it's okay because life. Yeah, honey, I was going to take the trash out, but Junior came along and asked me to look over his homework. And helping Johnny with his homework is very important because, he doesn't have the best grades. So I had to stop what I was doing to make sure I took care of that. And then when I was doing that, I just forgot about the trash. And you think this is okay because you have mitigating reasons as to why you didn't take the trash out. You have an excuse that somehow that alleviates you from keeping your word. It doesn't. You know what she hears? She hears the excuse. And what she knows is you didn't keep your word. And when you violate that enough times, you're conditioning her not to accept what you have to say. Well, how in the world are you going to be a leader in your household, if your wife doesn't trust what you have to say? If she can't believe in what you have to say, you can't lead that way. It's impossible. And so as a result, women end up leading the household because they can't trust you. And how does this make you feel, husband? You can pacify yourself with video games and distract yourself, but deep down, this hurts. Deep down, this hurts because you know that you're supposed to be the leader of your household, but you're not that man. You've inspired her to follow you. You're not that man. I'm not going to give you the secret to being that man. And then I'm going to make the offer yet again to work with you. Because these are not easy things to develop in principle. You may know them in your head. You may have heard some of these things in church. But they're not easy to implement in life. If they were, then we'd all be happy. All the men would be walking in the path of God, towards God. All the wives would be happy. There wouldn't be any divorce, separation, problems. Everybody would be happy. You say, well, JR, everybody can't be happy. Surely, yes, they can. If you know how to be happy, there's no reason for you not to be happy. You have a choice in this. It's binary. You can either be happy in life, do the right things, do as God has instructed. That's where your true happiness comes from. Or you can not do it. Try to generate some happiness through material things, through women, through drugs, through alcohol, partying, all kinds of distractions. So ask yourself, which path do you want to walk? Even if you're not a religious person, it's okay. You can still, the principles still work. I know you hear in church that you have to accept Jesus as your Lord and Savior, and you got to repent, acceptance and belief, faith, that's your salvation. I'm not here to disagree with that. That's not the point of this video, of this series. I'm here to tell you that the principles work regardless whether you are a true believer in God or an atheist, whether you're a Christian or non-Christian, Jew, Muslim, Sikh, Buddhist, whether you study the ancient philosophers, Epictetus, Marcus of Aurelius, doesn't matter. Where your belief system is stemmed from, the Torah, the principles are the same. They all work, regardless. So belief is not one of those things that's called on here. What's called upon for you is to get back to your roots and walk a certain path. And if you do that, if you learn to do that successfully, you'll be happy in life. You'll have deep joy in life. You'll know how to energize the woman that's in your life, your children. You energize other people because you're an energetic being. That's what God always intended for you. The problems that you're having is because you're deviating from that. The more you deviate from that, the less successful you're going to be in life. We look around the world sometimes and we look at people that we think are assholes and like, how is that person so successful? What you don't realize is that the success of that person comes from being able to energize other people around them. In fact, one of my life mentors, Zig Ziglar, would always say that you can get everything you want in life if you simply help enough other people get what they want. That's where you need, never been truer words. That is one of the keys to success in life, helping other people get what they want. It's not always about you. You can be driven to be motivated to get the things that you want in life, but center that by energizing other people, making other people feel good about themselves, about their life, about what they're doing. We don't tear down. We don't criticize. You don't do it at home. You don't do it outside of your home. It takes practice to learn these techniques. I can tell you just like I'm telling you now. Be energetic. So what does that mean to you? Do you know how to actually go out and be energetic? No. You need to learn. You need to practice. You need to practice in safe areas. That's what the coaching and the mentoring is about. Go to my website, djrstewart.com. My contact information is there. Reach out to me. I'll be glad to talk to you. Don't worry about the fee. If it's an issue of the fee, we can work that out. And so there's going to be a third part 3 to this, I promise. In part 3, I'm going to wrap it all up. And so there won't be a part 4. So if you're watching this video and you didn't watch part 1, please go back and watch part 1 before you watch part 3. You know, you don't want to jump to the end and get all the good stuff without watching the first 2 videos that set it all up. So I will see you in the next video in part 3. You know, please check it out. Thank you.